The royal fantasy is crumbling fast, and this time, it's not the tabloids fueling the fire. In a stunning and unfiltered moment of pop culture reality, Kate Winslet and Jimmy Fallon took the gloves off during a segment on The Tonight Show, mocking Meghan Markle's newest podcast endeavor with biting sarcasm and raw honesty. What was meant to be a polished rebranding project for Meghan, once hailed as a modern duchess for a new era, has now become the laughingstock of Hollywood's inner circle. And the backlash isn't being whispered in corners, it's being broadcast on primetime television. It started with an innocent enough cue during Fallon's monologue, joking about celebrity podcasts and their oversaturation. But when Winslet joined in, the tone shifted. With a tight smile and a knowing glance, she remarked, "I listened to it." It felt like she was interviewing herself with a mirror and a script. The audience burst into laughter, but behind the punchline was a cold truth. Meghan's podcast, which she promoted as a platform for deep, authentic conversations, is being perceived as shallow, overproduced, and most damningly disingenuous. Jimmy Fallon, known for his usually lighthearted demeanor, didn't hold back either. He followed up Winslet's jab with a quip that landed like a bombshell. "It's like Meghan's podcast is trying to solve world peace one self-congratulatory anecdote at a time." The audience laughed again, but Meghan's team, insiders report, did not. Sources close to her inner circle say she was fuming backstage at the public ridicule, particularly coming from respected figures like Winslet, who has long avoided royal drama, making her criticism all the more cutting. What's especially damning here isn't just the jokes, it's who's making them. Kate Winslet, a Hollywood icon known for her thoughtful, no-nonsense demeanor, doesn't lend her voice to gossip or cheap shots. For her to break that silence signals a broader shift in how Meghan is being perceived among serious creatives. The era of uncritical celebrity support appears to be ending for Meghan. Where once she stood as a symbol of resistance to outdated monarchy norms, she is now increasingly viewed as someone exploiting her royal ties for shallow fame. The podcast itself has come under intense scrutiny. Marketed as a space for women to share their stories, it's been criticized for over-editing, lack of genuine dialogue, and Meghan's habit of centering herself in every narrative. From Hollywood producers to former podcast guests, whispers have been growing louder. The show isn't about empowerment. It's about ego. One former Spotify executive, speaking anonymously, described it as a PR machine disguised as a podcast, adding, "You don't feel invited into a conversation. You feel like you're attending a branding seminar." What makes the situation worse for Meghan is that her media missteps are now fair game for late-night ridicule, the final stage in a public figure's fall from grace. When mainstream comedy shows like Fallon's feel comfortable poking fun without fear of backlash, it signals a wider cultural permission to mock rather than protect. And with Winslet not a comic but a respected actress throwing in her candid critique, Meghan's brand may have reached a critical turning point. Even Meghan's defenders are finding it hard to spin this. Public relations experts point out that her reaction, reportedly demanding that her team push back hard against the segment, only reinforces the narrative of someone out of touch with how she's perceived. "She's treating every critique like a smear campaign," said a top Hollywood publicist, when in reality, people are just reacting to how artificial the product feels. This is not just about a podcast. This is about credibility. Meghan, who once stirred sympathy as a woman silenced by the palace, is now accused of using the same controlling tactics, just on her own terms. Critics argue that behind the polished veneers and heavily curated interviews is a personality obsessed with controlling the narrative, not telling the truth. The timing couldn't be worse. With her $20 million Spotify deal having already collapsed and Netflix reportedly re-evaluating future projects, Meghan's media empire is looking less like a legacy and more like a cautionary tale. Winslet and Fallon's remarks didn't just poke fun, they exposed the hollow center of a brand built on buzzwords, not substance. In the end, what remains is the stark image of a duchess-turned-influencer now battling ridicule instead of reverence. Once praised for breaking barriers, Meghan Markle is learning the hard way that the Hollywood spotlight is as ruthless as the royal one, and this time, it's not the palace that's putting her on trial. It's the very industry she thought would embrace her. And the sting cuts deeper because this rejection is not coming from tabloids or palace insiders, it's coming from the very world Meghan bet her future on. Hollywood, with all its glitz, has little patience for performative vulnerability and even less for unearned reverence. What once felt like a fresh voice in a tired system now echoes with self-importance, and audiences are tuning out. Gone are the sympathetic headlines and standing ovations. In their place are satirical segments, side-eye from A-listers, and a growing sense of fatigue. Meghan's calculated moves, strategic interviews, hand-picked collaborations, and tightly controlled narratives once gave her an aura of mystery and control. But the illusion is fading. As Winslet's critique and Fallon's humor gain traction, Meghan's image is starting to look more curated than courageous. Even fans are beginning to ask, what does she actually stand for? She aimed to disrupt both monarchy and media, but now finds herself alienated from both. And as the cultural tide shifts, one truth becomes clearer than ever: authenticity can't be ghostwritten. Meghan Markle may have once had the world's attention, but in the unforgiving court of Hollywood, attention without trust is just noise. And that noise is getting harder to ignore.